This video will contain spoilers for both Arkham City and Arkham Knight, as well as their respective novelizations. Continue at your own risk. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking it out if you're new. If you've been here before, you know that I love the Batman Arkham series. I've played the games countless times, watched the animated spin-off, and even forced my friend Natalie to check them out.
There's a teeny little bit of me in you too. Bats. Oh, come on. Don't tell me it's...
That being said, I've never really delved into the written media of the franchise. Each game has had its own set of tie-in comics that I never bothered to read, as half of them are no longer considered canon, contradicting lore found in the game. However, there was one book that managed to catch my eye. While thrift shopping, I stumbled upon the official novelization of Arkham Knight. Now, normally I would pay this no mind. Novelizations of games, movies, or TV shows have never caught my attention, seeing as they're just retellings of stories I've already experienced. However, while curiously flipping through the book, I noticed there were some differences in one key scene from the story. This made me so curious that I bought it and read the entire thing, and turns out there are a lot of small and big differences between this adaptation and the game. On top of that, this novelization is strangely enough written by Marv Wolfman, the creator behind Crisis on Infinite Earths and the Teen Titans as most people know them today. So, did Marv do the cinematic finale of the Arkham trilogy justice? Let's find out as we discuss the good, the bad, and the spoilers of the official novelization of Batman Arkham Knight. So right off the bat, one of my favorite things from this novelization is that some elements from the game are expanded upon more. For example, the evacuation, which is simply just the opening cutscene of the game, is actually the first couple chapters, where during this time Gordon recounts how difficult it is to evacuate the city while Batman is stopping petty crimes. And I thought it really gave the evacuation more weight versus, frankly, in-game it's just a reason to not have to populate the city with NPCs. On top of that, this book is written like a screenplay, so very clear visuals are in your mind. Like, I could see it straight out of the video game. Especially the Predator sequences. This is the stealth segments of the game, if you're not familiar with them. And every Predator sequence was in extreme detail, as he described Batman grappling from gargoyle to gargoyle, and then he swoops down and grabs this guy, or oh, he chokes out this guy, or oh, he punches this guy in the back of the head. It was very detailed, and I could clearly see in my head what was playing out. Another positive from this version of the story is that Gordon has his own POVs at moments in the story, which is very interesting because we don't see much of him in the game. He's in the first couple missions, and then he's gone for 90% of the game, and then he shows up at like the second to last mission in the game. Versus here, we flip back to him and we go inside his head and we hear what he's thinking of Batman or the events. And it gives us insight into what he was doing during the game. Versus, like I said, in the game, he's just gone. He's not showing up. On top of that, I thought all the references to DC lore and Easter eggs were cute. Like, I assume this is a Marv Wolfman touch, where he does talk, like the thugs will talk about, oh, the alien in Metropolis. And Marv gives background for every character he introduces. Which, again, I'm sure was some kind of mandate, because not everyone who picks up this book is going to have played the game or be aware. The novelizations of a TV show, movie, or video game is supposed to be an accessibility to those who might not want to consume or can't consume that media in that format. So here, it was great the way he described every villain's backstory, every hero's backstory, in just one quick, little Wikipedia summary before the story continued. Another positive I found, and maybe this will be controversial, but let's not pretend like Arkham Batman is not invincible. I mean, he takes down tanks, giant creatures and monsters, and hundreds of thugs in one night. However, in the book, Batman is not invincible. He is constantly getting his ass beat in this story. And the book also really highlights that every time he gets into a fight, he has to hold off the Joker blood, which is coursing through his veins and slowly turning him into the Joker. And we see inside Batman's head where he talks about, like, oh, that hit was way too hard. Like, that's Joker pushing through, and so I have to hold him back. Lastly, one of my final positives before we talk about some negatives and spoilers is that the Arkham Knight himself is a much more playful villain in the book, which I thought is interesting. For example, in the scene where Batman is rescuing one of the Ace Chemicals employees, and the Knight has him trapped, the Knight actually draws a smiley face on the window in the steam, versus in the game he's so edgy and angry the whole time. So it was nice to see him a little playful, kind of like the comic book counterpart of the character is. So one of the first big negatives out of this book is obviously there are some continuity errors, which again, I can't blame Marv. I would not be surprised to find out he didn't play the game or even read a synopsis of Arkham City or Arkham Asylum. That's not his job. He's a comic book writer who was given the task to write this novelization. I'll go more into the continuity errors once we talk about the book spoilers. I know I mentioned it as a positive, but I would also say that the fact that the book is written like a screenplay is also a negative or a detraction for me. In my opinion, this would have served better as a comic, which again, Marv Wolfman is a comic writer, so I'm not sure why they didn't give him the opportunity to make this into a beautiful graphic novel. There are times where it is way too detailed, to the point that you're bored. For example, we all know how the gliding mechanic works in the game. You dive and rise to cross the city. Well, at one point in the book, we have a whole chapter where Batman is crossing the city by doing that up and down maneuver. And I don't need to hear the whole up and down maneuver. You can just say he glides all the way to Ace Chemicals and be done. On top of that, and we'll get into more of this on the spoilers, but there are way too many inspiring speeches about overcoming fear in this book. Like, again, I know that this is kind of a different take on the Arkham universe, being written by Marv, rather than the writers of the video game. And I know a big part of Arkham Knight is overcoming fear, seeing as the villain is Scarecrow. However, literally every time Batman gets on his comm device with Alfred, Lucius, Robin, even Poison Ivy of all people, either he gives them or they give him some kind of speech about overcoming fear. And by the 10th speech about overcoming fear, I was over it. The last negative for me with this book is that the back half is literally just beat for beat the game script, which, like I mentioned in the positive, there are elements that Marv expands upon in this book that are not touched on in the game, so I don't know if there was a deadline or what, but while the first half of the book is so detailed in what everyone does and adds new material for the additional supporting characters outside of Batman to be doing, the back half is literally just the game script. And I kind of feel like it undermines everything the first half worked towards. So with that being said, let's talk about those differences now in the spoiler section. So right off the bat, one of the first differences is the cremation of the Joker. This is Gordon's first POV. It's the opening chapter of the book, which compared to the game, it's just a button push, and then we get the title card and opening narration from Gordon. Which here, we see that the book is actually pretty funny and tongue-in-cheek, in that Gordon flushes Joker down a bunch of different toilets to ensure that there's no way this bastard can ever come back. And I thought that was very funny and very fitting that the Joker gets flushed down the toilet. Like I said, the evacuation is more fleshed out as well. Gordon is sitting there trying to coordinate police and citizens, while Batman is out stopping petty crimes. In the game, the Joker disease is a bit of a reveal later in the game, but we know it from the first chapter, because Batman goes to stop a fire, and when he gets there, he beats the absolute snot out of these criminals, these arsonists, and he acknowledges, like, oh no, that's the Joker part of my brain. On top of this, Batman also quips a lot in this, like Adam West level quips. And originally I just chalked this up to, I assumed it was because of the Joker disease. But I actually think this is just how Marv likes to write Batman, as I have another segment later in this video talking about it. Something I was disappointed that didn't make it in is there was no evening the odds. the iconic scene where Batman gets the Batmobile in the game. Instead, he just already has the Batmobile and is just driving it around the city casually. And I think it's a bit of a bummer because it's a cool moment in the game. But I also think it's because the book doesn't make the Batmobile as big of a deal as the game does. In the game, the Batmobile has its own boss fights, for Pete's sake. Versus in this, it really is just a car. There are some crazy continuity errors. Like, for one, Hugo Strange is alive, which can't be possible because
Gotham will forever thank Hugo Strange. Oh, Court Wayne. No!
Get out of there!
But yeah, when Gordon and Batman are listing off the various crimes that are happening in the city, one of the crimes he lists is that Hugo Strange is bombing Grand Central Station with Victor Zsasz, which, again, cannot be two fundamentally different characters. Like, they would never work together in any way. And again, Hugo is definitely dead at this time. I did think Zsasz's inclusion was interesting because he was actually supposed to be in the video game. So I am questioning if him bombing Grand Central Station would have been part of his storyline had he remained in the game. A cute little Easter egg I thought was nice in the book is that all the police officers are named after Batman creators. So you have characters like Officer Finger, Lieutenant Miller, Captain Nolan, Detective Schumacher, and so that was a very nice nod to the creators of Batman over the years. And speaking of different iterations of Batman, this version of Batman in the book is so nice. I truly feel like this book is if you take Brave and the Bold or Adam West Batman and dropped them into this scenario from Arkham Knight. Like, he is constantly quipping and making jokes. At one point, Gordon talks about, like, oh, those inmates are gonna soil themselves. And, Batman's like, oh, don't make me puke. And again, Arkham Batman would never talk like that, but I guess it almost did make the book funny, too. Again, in my head, I just imagined Adam West Batman in this crazy Arkham Knight scenario. He's also way more patient and reasonable. In the game, when he needs Poison Ivy's help, he literally doesn't give her a choice. Versus in the book, he is so nice to her. He literally calls her by her actual name, like he's begging her. He's like, Pamela, please, the people of Gotham need you. Versus again in the game, he's like, get over here, and you're gonna help me if you like it or not. It's also hinted that he doesn't actually tell Gordon about the Jokers. I have always assumed this actually happened in the video game. However, the book makes it sound like it might have just been a Joker dream. Like Batman wakes up and he's like, oh, that wasn't real. It was just a dream. That being said though, while obviously Gordon's breakup in the game hurts Batman, he is so heartbroken in this version. And that's where, again, maybe he sits on it for too much. But he is constantly bringing up, like, I am so sad that Gordon doesn't like me anymore. And again, I think it's because this version of Batman is oh so sweet and nice. Versus, I think the Arkham version of Batman is so callous and cold. Maybe to a fault. Another really fun Easter egg that I don't think was at all on purpose. But the whole time Batman is fighting off the Joker blood, he is worried he'll kill Nightwing while under control of the Joker blood. Interestingly enough, that is the plot of the VR game. Like, spoiler alert, sorry, but it's a very bad VR game that you shouldn't play and isn't playable on most modern VR headsets anyways. That being said, I do feel like this version of the book also is missing some of the stakes of the video game. For example, Scarecrow's fear toxin isn't as strong. It can be stopped by gas masks and hazmat suits. When in the game, they make a specific note to say that gas masks and hazmat suits will not stop it. It will seep through the fibers. And so, essentially, in this version of the story, the cops that have the breathing equipment would be fine. Versus in the game, it's the much higher stakes of everyone is screwed. And with that being said, the only reason Batman even gets gassed, which starts releasing the Joker, persona out of him more, is because he gets a tear in his suit. Which I guess some could say is better than the game version where he's just sitting there inhaling this stuff like it's nothing. But I also felt like it was a little silly. On top of that, there are greater hints at who the Knight is from the start. He references throughout the story private cases from Batman's past that no one, not even Gordon or Alfred, would know about. And so that immediately gets him start thinking, and that's when he questions if, maybe it's Hush, maybe it's Two-Face, and it can't be Penguin because of the body type. And so I thought it was interesting that we see him kind of trying to think of who it could be, versus in the game he's just constantly calling Alfred and being like, who's the Knight? You figure out anything about the Knight? The book also lets us know that the Knight knows Bruce's identity from the start, versus in the game, it isn't revealed until his final attempt to kill Bruce. Versus here, he reveals it during the moment with the helicopter on the bridge at Ace Chemicals. And when we look at Joker, there are a lot of little changes with Joker that do add up in the story. For example, Albert King is now just known as Big Al. And he is a robber instead of a wrestler. And I can only assume this change was made just to remove the fight / make Batman and Robin recapturing him when Harley lets all the Jokers out easier. In fact, Johnny Charisma is the only Joker to get a moment in the book. He plays out his whole singing and dancing sequence from the video game. Meanwhile, the others are taken out off-screen by Robin, which I was a little disappointed in, but I guess it would have taken up a large portion of the book. Batman, being the quippy, fun Adam West Batman that he is, actually talks to Joker's hallucinations, and gets more aggressive and has evil thoughts, which might be a benefit of the book being in his head, versus in the game we're just following along. For example, he's constantly talking about how he's going to kill someone, and he talks about how Lucius is so stupid and Alfred is annoying. And I thought hearing these inner thoughts was interesting to just show how much the Joker blood is affecting him. Versus, yes, in game we get the funny little clips from Joker here and there, but frankly in the game the Joker blood doesn't seem like that much of a problem, because again, it's just Joker showing up and quipping. Versus here he has full-on conversations with Joker about killing his allies. I also thought the book did a bit mixed job on the whole reality and illusion blending together from Scarecrow's gas. Like, for example, in the sequence where Barbara's death is faked from the game, Scarecrow talks to Joker in this sequence, immediately setting off a red flag, and Batman knows this isn't real. Versus in the game, you, the player, and Batman are to presume she is dead. Versus in the book, he goes, no, Scarecrow was talking to Joker and Joker's in my head, so this didn't actually happen. Barbara's alive. But that also gets totally undermined by the back half of the book being the game script, because then near the end of the book, he still apologizes to Gordon, like, I'm sorry, Barbara's dead, and he has like a shock and revelation that Barbara's actually alive when Scarecrow wheels her out, which he wouldn't have here if we stayed consistent with the start of the book, because again, he knows it's fake. The death / not death of Jason Todd is also a bit different. For example, in this version, Joker quote-unquote kills Jason with a crowbar, which that is how he dies in the comic book, so I'm sure Marv just went with the history that he knows. However, in the video game, Joker shoots him and pretends that he's killed Jason, when actually Jason is alive. Frankly, I'm not sure what was happening here, because Batman describes and talks about, like, yeah, I saw the footage where he literally, like, bashed Jason's head in with the crowbar, and it's like, well, we know that didn't unless in this version Jason took a Lazarus bath, because Again, in the game, he just gets shot and Batman thinks he's dead when he's really trapped in the abandoned wing of Arkham Asylum. And again, strangely enough, as I said, the end of the book is just the game script where Batman once again starts referring to, like, oh, I saw Joker shoot you. And so it's not clear what happened. / again, the end of the book defaults back to the game script. So him saying, oh, I saw Joker shoot you, and it's like, no, you didn't. You literally described earlier about him beating him to death with a crowbar. So, okay. Something I thought was a crazy change is that the cloudburst is barely an inconvenience at all. In the video game, the cloudburst is how Joker disperses gas across the entire city. And it's this huge, monstrous tank that Batman has to do a, funnily enough, stealth boss fight with in his tank. But here in the game, Ivy just clears the gas immediately with her plants. And this is where I think somebody overhead at Marv, or just because it wasn't important enough, said, like, okay, we need to wrap this book up to have it ready to release with the game, because it did release like a month after the game came out. Because when Batman goes to interrogate Stag to figure out how to shut down the cloudburst, it literally just says in one sentence, Stag gave him the information, which is a very quick resolution rather than having him actually explain it. Also, there's no Arkham Knight excavator fight. Instead, we just go straight into the mall, into the Predator and hand-to-hand fight instead. And that fight plays out exactly as it does in the game, followed by Batman and Gordon going up to the roof to confront Scarecrow. And this is where things get really hallucinated / ambiguous, because Scarecrow in this moment, again, I think it's supposed to be a hallucination, but again, Batman questions it the rest of the book, is Scarecrow says he knows Batman has Joker blood, and he is trying to gas Batman with fear toxin to turn him into the new Joker. The rest of the book plays this ambiguously, where Batman isn't sure if it's real or not, but ultimately, this doesn't matter, and it's clearly a hallucination because it's undermined by the ending. Because it has to be the same ending as the video game, Scarecrow still questions Joker Batman when he's injecting him. In the game, Scarecrow is caught off guard by Bat Joker's response to his taunting. So obviously that was just a hallucination, but I wish the book had left it a little more ambiguous. It's disappointing. The ending is the exact same. Batman surrenders to Scarecrow and is unmasked. We have the Joker nightmare. Batman takes down Scarecrow and then initiates the Nightfall Protocol, where we see the epilogue, and the book is over. And yeah, like I said, this is a bummer because the beginning was so promising. We have a whole chapter at the beginning of the book where we follow Two-Face, and he talks about his relationship with Bruce Wayne and the law and Gordon, and how now he's a criminal working with the Penguin. And then, like I said, the end of the book is just like, okay, this is what happens at the end of the video game. The end. So I'm not really sure what happened to it. And it's because of this ending that I don't really think I can recommend you read it for yourself. Like I said, it's a very quick, breezy read because it is written like a screenplay. But the changes are so odd at times that while there are some interesting ones, and having Adam West Batman in this scenario was funny, it's not enough to warrant reading it on your own. If you're going to experience the story of Arkham Knight, I still recommend you play the game. That being said, I hold no ill will towards Marv Wolfman. Like I said, he wrote what he was probably given, and he was given a deadline because this released with the game. I think Marv made interesting choices where he could, but was ultimately forced to stick to the game's storyline by the end, which ultimately makes it a mixed bag of an adaptation. Am I glad that I read it? Sure, but I probably won't revisit it in the future. Let me know if you've read this book or if you even knew it existed in the comments down below. If you liked what you saw here and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know when the next one's coming. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.